Hey guys, this is Eli from Framer.com. In today's video, I'll show you how to create this dynamic table of content in Framer. As you can see, we're using scroll variants in order to highlight whichever section of the page we're currently viewing. We're also using scroll sections and smooth scroll. Finally, we're using component variants in order to set an active state and inactive state for our navigation links. This table of content would work with any CMS detail page. All the data in here is being pulled dynamically from the CMS and would change depending on your page. We've also implemented a visibility condition in here, so only navigation links which have corresponding content, section content set in the CMS would show up. Now let's dive into Framer and see how we could recreate this step by step. So in here, I duplicated the standard documentation, the free template, because it's a good candidate for a table of content from the Framer website. So you could head to the Framer templates website, go to the documentation category, and it's the one called Standard by Hunter. Just click Use for Free, and it's gonna open either in your browser or in your Framer app. In here, I'm using the dedicated Framer app. All right, so first thing we need to do is to head to our CMS and click Edit Fields, so we could edit the default fields. By default, we have one content field. We need to split our content into multiple fields. So I'm gonna edit this one. I'm gonna call it Section 1, okay? Let's create four more sections. So let's have 5 sections in total. These are formatted text. So I'm gonna say Section 2, one more, Section 3, Section 4, and finally, Section 5. You can, of course, have as much sections as you need, but for this tutorial, we're gonna stick to 5. I think you don't need more than 10. So once we have these are gonna hold our content. We need titles for each of them. We're gonna use the titles also for our navigation links, so we could get dynamic titles. In this case, we're gonna use plain text. So let's create a field, call it Section Title. I'm gonna copy it. Section Title 1, just repeat it 5 times, okay? Section Title 2, Section Title 3, and 4, and finally 5, okay? Now we need to reorder these, so add the section title on top, okay? 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we have the basic structure, so we could start creating our table of content. You can see before we were using this to add everything in here. This was our only content field, right? Now we have content 2, section 2, etc. Okay, so now that we split our fields, we could split our data. So let's, instead of adding the title in here, you could still add it in here, but I'm gonna add it in section title 1, okay? And I'm gonna split this, okay, to three sections. So let's paste this in here. Again, add the title to section 2. And finally, for this section, again, I'm hitting Command X to cut. Okay, and add the title in here. So even though we have 5 sections, we filled 3 sections. So our table of content will work dynamically, of course. So if no data is here, it's not gonna show the link to section 4. Let's save it and see what we have now, okay? So go back. As you can see, we still don't see the other sections because by default content was set to the variable section 1. okay? So we need to duplicate this 5 times so we can add our 5 sections, okay? I'm gonna call it section 1 and duplicate it using Command D 5 times. Let's rename them section 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? So next thing you need to do, these are pulling data dynamically from the CMS. Right now, every section is pulling from section 1, right? So you click on section 2, you click on this plus icon, set variable, section 2. So now section 2 data is showing up. Okay, let's do the same for the 4 extra sections, 3 extra sections. Okay, so section 4, content, set variable, section 4. And finally, section 5, content, set variable, section 5. Okay, in this case, we don't have section 4 and 5, so they're not showing up, but it's always a good idea to add a visibility as well. So now we're missing the titles, right? We used to have the titles in here, so let's add this. We could just create a text or duplicate the section. Let's say section 1, section title. I'm gonna call section title 1, okay? And instead of the variable section 1, I'm gonna set it section title 1. As you can see, it's black, it's not visible. I'm gonna give it a text style of heading 2, okay? So now it's loading the title dynamically. I'm gonna duplicate this 5 times again, okay? So we have 5, just rename them to the correct titles, okay? And let's reorder them. So each title is above each content section. And finally, we need to link. So now they're still referring section title 1. So in this case, 2 for section title 2, 3 for section title 3, 4, even though we're not seeing it, but we need to set it, okay? Section title 4, oh, it's visible in here. Okay, now it's hidden because we don't have a value for section 4 because we haven't set our sections. Okay, so now we're seeing section 1 to 3, right? All right, so next thing I want to do, because it looks like for organization, you know, I like to add a frame around this. So let's add a stack, not a frame, and let's call this section 1, okay? So I'm gonna give it a width of fill, a height of fit content. I'm gonna, let's say, gap of 24, okay? And I will do the same for the rest, okay? So add stack, again in here, add stack, and for section 4, add stack. This will be helpful later on because we could set visibility conditions only one time instead of setting visibility on both of these. You'll see later on. So let's give them descriptive names: section 2, section 3, section 4. You can see it's a bit repetitive, but once you set everything up to work dynamically, like you set it once and you forget about it. So, okay, so let's say width fill, okay, and height, set it to fit content. I'm setting it for all of these sections, okay, and the gap to 24. All right, now we can work with these individual sections. So now let's add scroll sections to each of these, okay? So we could have target to scroll to. So if you want to scroll to basic, we're gonna scroll to section 2, okay? So one by one, we go to scroll section. We need to give them, we cannot give them, unfortunately, descriptive names in here because we still can't set variables for scroll section in Framer. But what we can do is set it to something like 1, 2, 3, because these, okay, these scroll sections are gonna be reused for all of our pages. So while we're there, don't forget to add an offset. So you see here we have maybe 80 pixels for the header. So let's say about 100 pixels is okay. Y offset, okay? So again, do the same for the 5 of them. Section 2, offset Y offset of 100. Section 3, Y offset 100. 4, 100. And finally 5. And again 100. Okay, so now we have these scroll sections which we could target using our links. Okay, now let's change our layout so we could have like a right sidebar, right, like a place on the right to place our table of content. Okay, let's see. This one, the maximum width is set to 600. I'm gonna set it to maybe 850. I think this is too much. Maybe 800. This is better. Okay. Now we need to create 2 columns. So this is the first column. This is the second column. Post. Okay. If we change this to columns, this like there, it's gonna mess up the layout. So we need to wrap these. Okay. We need to wrap all of these into another stack. We're gonna call it something like, let's say left for now. Make sure width is fit content. Sorry, let's set the width to 0.75 FR, meaning 75%. Okay, I'm gonna align everything to the left. Okay, distribute, leave it to center. All right, so let's see. And here we have fixed width. Let's just change it to fill. Okay, so now we have an area to add our right sidebar. Let's just edit the gap a little bit because it looks a bit off. So I'm gonna say 24. All right, so let's add our right sidebar. Hit F to create a frame. Okay, now in here we need to change our direction to columns. So we have 2 columns. Drag this in here so we move it to the right. Width 0.25 FR. So a quarter of a fraction. Okay, and for the height, later on I'm gonna set it to fit content once I add my content. Let's remove the color. Okay, let's see what happened. I added an opacity by mistake. Okay, so let's add our table of content in here. You could, like, I'm not gonna dive into design and stuff. Do whatever design you want. I just want to show you the technique and how you could, like, the approach to add a table of content. You can style it however you want. For now, I'll just copy this nav link since we have it styled already. So Command C. Let's go in here. I'm gonna change this to add a layout, rows. Okay, let's call it right maybe. Or let's call it table of content, table of content to be more descriptive. And this could be content. Correct. So paste this. This is the link that we copied before. Okay. And in this case, we still need this post because I show you later on why for sticky position. But for now, let's change on the table of content, let's change the distribute to start and align to left. Okay. Now we could set the height to fit content. Sorry, the height of table of content needs to be fill. So we could, once we have sticky position, we could use this space for the table of content to stick. Yeah. For this one, I'm gonna call it sticky content. You'll see later on why. And this is the title. I'm gonna remove this link for now. Okay, I'm gonna call it, let's say nav link. Okay. Remove the content for now because we're gonna create a component. So I'm gonna right click on this. You could do it using the shortcut Option Command K, but okay. Create component. I'm gonna call it nav link. What we need to do now is to have an inactive and an active state. Okay, so let's create a new variant. I clicked here, so I selected the first variant and created an extra variant. Let's call the first inactive and the second one active. I'm not gonna dive in too much into styling. You do whatever style you want, but I just want to show you how you could set this up. So I think this is okay for now. Okay, so now we have inactive and active. Okay, next what we need to do is to add a link. So inside our component we set up a link and give it a variable. Okay, link to create variable, and now we're exposing a variable to the outside. Let's set this to smooth and new tab to no. Okay, so now every link has a link variable which we can set from here. All right, so let's see. Width 1FR, height, let's say height fit content, width fit content, let's set it to fill. Okay, sticky content. Okay, minimum width, let's set the minimum width for this one. Width 200. Okay, let's say minimum width 200 and width fit content. This is better. Okay, so now I'm gonna duplicate this navlink 5 times. Let's call it navlink 1. Again, duplicate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's open this one. Rename them. 3 navlink 4. A bit repetitive, but I mean, set it up once and forget about it. All right, so now all of these are static, like the text is not dynamic. So let's say for the title, I'm gonna set it to variable section title 1, so it's loading dynamically. Okay, for the second one, section title 2, third one, and the fourth one, and finally the fifth one. And in this case we don't have them, so they're not showing up. We're gonna add visibility conditions later on. Okay, first nav link is always gonna be active, right? So let's set it to active by default. So just select the first nav link, set it to active. Okay, now we need to add the links to our scroll sections, which we set up before, these scroll sections, so that clicking this link would take us to the corresponding scroll section. So in this case, link doc slug and section 1, right? For the second one, the same, but the section would be section 2. Again, for the third one, and repeat it for all of them. So 4, and finally section 5. All right, what else do we need to do? These are not set, but you can see they're still showing. So it's a good idea to have visibility conditions. Okay, so again, we had to nav link 1. You see this visible, we're gonna set it to a variable. You're gonna set it to variable. If section title 1 is set, then show me this this component, this title. Okay, we're gonna do the same for the rest. So navlink 1 and navlink 2, section title is set. Navlink 3, visibility, set variable, section 3 is set. Section 3 title. Now you see this one is gonna be hidden because section title 4 is not set. You see, we don't have it anymore. and it's grayed out in here. So visible section title 5 is set. Okay, so now it's working dynamically. Like say we add, let me just move it right here. Say we add section 4, it's gonna show up dynamically. Like let's say 4, you see it? So now it's working dynamically. You don't have to work. Let's say 4, 5. Okay, this is important for it to work dynamically. Now let's continue. Now we have these links. They're correctly linking to each of our scroll sections. Now let's add a scroll variant. So let's give it a preview before. So basics, okay. See, it's working, but first we need to set this to position sticky. So the table of content is always showing in here. And then we need to set to highlight the correct variant. So if we scroll past sizing your component section 2 nav link should be highlighted. So let's first set this to sticky. So the reason I set sticky content in here, because see this container is gonna stick inside of its parent container, which is table of content. Okay, if table of content wasn't set to fill, if it was set to fit content, it wouldn't have space to stick. Okay, another thing you need to keep in mind is that if you want this to be sticky, all of its parent layers need to have overflow visible, as otherwise it's not gonna work. So this is the child layer. So every parent layer needs to have overflow set to visible. In this case, let's see, post should have overflow visible. It's set already. Main, okay, and desktop, and now it should work. Let's just, I missed adding a Y offset. Okay, I missed making it sticky. So I selected sticky content, change the position to sticky. Gonna add maybe 150. Let's give it a try. Okay, preview. Yeah, you see it? Now these are not yet set up, scroll variants, but we're gonna set them up later on. Now, one thing, like if you were to have your desktop, like any parent layer, if it were set to hidden, sticky position wouldn't work. Like many people stumble upon this issue, so keep it in mind when using sticky position. Okay, let's set it back to visible. Now we want to add a scroll variant. So once we reach section 2, for example, this navlink 1 should be inactive and navlink 2 should be active. Let's do it. Let's select our first navlink. You know what? I'm gonna increase the size of this one a little bit. So stick table of content, I'm gonna say 0.35. This is better, I think. Okay, and for our content, I'm gonna say 0.65. Okay. All right. So again, nav link. Okay. We select our first nav link. We're gonna add a scroll variant. Click on Effect, Scroll Variant. We want section in view. So if this section 1 is in view, we want it to be, it's active by default. So because this is the first section, we don't need to set it up because you already set active as a default state for the first link. So now let's just change it. Say if we reach section 2, then change this variant to inactive, right? So if we scroll past getting started, once we reach basic, now getting started will be inactive, as you can see. So now we do the same for the rest of the links. Effect, scroll variant, section in view, In this case, we need to set it to active first because it's not active by default. So if we reach section 2, I need to set this variant to active. And again, another condition, once I reach section 3, change this section 2 link back to inactive. Okay, so let's give it a preview. You can see section 2 is working and it's changing to inactive. We'll do the same for the third link, section in view, set section. If it's the third section, set it to active. Once we reach the fourth section, set it to inactive. Even though we're not seeing it, but we need to set these conditions because later on we might have 4 or 5 sections. So select, even you're not seeing it, select it from your layer in here. Okay, you cannot select it from here, but select navlink 4 and set again the scroll variants. Section in view 4, set it to active, and if we reach section 5, set it to inactive. Okay, the same, a bit repetitive, but it's a one-time setup. Scroll variant, section in view, section 5, active. Okay, in here you could have a spacer and add an end section, or you could just refer the section above it. Let's give it a try. Let's say if we reach section 4, because we reach the end of the page, we can probably scroll up. So section 5 is active. Once we're back to section 4, set it to inactive. Okay, let's give it a preview. I'm gonna add 2 extra sections just so we can see what's happening. Okay, I'll just copy the content from here. So this is, let's say section 5, yeah, and section 4. Okay, now we have 5 sections. We scroll, you see they're working. Section 2, section 3, section 4. Okay, so here's the trick. See, section 5 is not being highlighted because section 4 is still in view. So what we can do to fix this issue, you see, section 5, to fix this issue, we could add a spacer. Like, let me show you. So under the last section, so this is section 5, right? Let's hit F. Okay, you know what, just duplicate this one, it's okay. Set it to, rename it to spacer. Okay, delete the content. All right, okay, let's give it a height of maybe 150px, something like this, so it doesn't look too odd. And change the scroll section in here from 5 to, I don't know, maybe end. Okay, end. Okay, so why did we do this? This is to trigger, okay, the section 5 to tell us that section 5 has ended. We're on another section. Okay, to make sense once we preview it. So section 5, let's edit again the variant. Instead of saying once I scroll back to section 4, set it to inactive, we're gonna say once we reach the end section, set it to inactive. Okay, just a little trick, but this would make it work. So now, as you can see, section 5 is highlighted. Okay, okay, so yeah, this is it. This is how you add a dynamic table of content in Framer. Everything is being loaded from the CMS. Let's just add some extra styling to this. Let me add back the first section. I think in here you could add like something extra, like let's just add an extra frame or a bullet or something, just to give it some extra styling. So width 15, I think it's too much, maybe 10. Yeah, 10 is good. Height 2, okay. And in here, just set the opacity, okay? On the primary variant, set the opacity to 0. Then select it again on your active variant and override the opacity to 1. This way, once we scroll, we're gonna get this to highlight the active state a bit better. So, you see? I think it looks good. Like, I don't want to waste time on styling. You could do whatever style you want. I just wanted to teach you how you could achieve this, what approach you could take to achieve a dynamic table of content. And most probably in most of my tutorial, I'm not gonna be focusing on styling and, like, you know, those candy-like buttons and blur and stuff. I just want to teach you the concepts. Then you can style whatever you want. You're the designer, okay? I'm just teaching you techniques on how to use Framer. So if this sounds good, subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna be dropping much more tutorials about Framer. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.